Another show on this Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. And we are 2 weeks, players, away from the big day, election day, although voting has already started in certain states. And we're going to talk about some of the poll results. Very surprising, very good news for Trump. We'll get into that. We're going to talk about some of the early voting returns, also looking good for Trump. But we really need to start with, I guess, the news of the day. We're joined by Paul Villarreal. The news of today is that Kamala Harris apparently, reportedly, is taking the day off campaigning, even though these polls are not looking so great, even though some of the other down ballot candidates for Senate and other places seem to be distancing themselves from Kamala Harris. We've also saw her at a town hall. It's been a bad week for Kamala Harris, in my opinion, on the campaign trail. But let's just get right into it. We've had sound from President Trump about this situation, and let's go to that right here. Let's get everything ready. First of all, let me bring in Paul Villarreal Paul, 2 weeks out, how you feeling about it?
Right now, I feel really good. And so do various markets like Poly Market, which is like just getting bigger, larger all the time.
We're going to go to that. We're definitely going to go to that. And right now we're live on Rumble, live on YouTube, live on X, live on Facebook. Will be reposted to LinkedIn. And let's talk about this right now. This right here on X, posted by Eric Daughtry, okay? And here we go. Let's go. Sound from Trump. I believe this was in Doral. Was this in Doral? I don't know. But let's go to this, courtesy of Right Side Broadcasting. Here we go.
Everything. And I was going to hit her really hard on the trail today, but now I don't have to because she's off. She's off. No, I can't get over it. Who the hell takes off? We have 14 days left, and she'll take a couple of more days off too. You know why?
Now, time out. We got to talk about this. Wasn't it the Kamala Harris campaign, Paul, that we're talking about President Trump as being, quote unquote, exhausted? Trump is going state to state, rally to rally, event to event. He's appearing at barbershops. He's appearing at rallies. He's appearing at town halls. He's going to different states. He's working at McDonald's. And now Kamala Harris is taking a day off. Trump does not look exhausted. He is engaging here. I can't believe this situation. What's your take on this before we play the rest of the sound?
Yeah, look, Trump said at that event, which I watched, that he hasn't taken a day off in 53 days.
Wow.
And right, we heard that Kamala Harris said that Trump is supposedly tired. Why are you taking the day off? Trump said also right there that Kamala Harris was, quote unquote, sleeping today.
What?
So he's just totally loving this. This is almost like a McDonald's type of thing where it's like he's rolling, she's getting punked out. And everybody on the sidelines is just laughing at this because where is she? I mean, Caroline Leavitt put out that his press secretary, where's Kamala?
Oh, my gosh.
This is just a disaster.
We have breaking news here. We're going to go to it right now. Let's play the rest of this clip. I'm going to go to the breaking news. This is incredible news. 1 second.
She's lazy as hell, and she's got that reputation. She's a radical left lunatic. She's further left than Bernie Sanders or Pocahontas. Now, Pocahontas.
Trump's definitely not short on verbosity and being able to characterize the situation. We'll let the president speak for himself. Here we go.
Because I think, is Pocahontas further left than Bernie? Just about, right? It's close. It's close. Who the hell cares, right? Rick says, yeah, I don't know. But they're out there. But she's furthest left. We can't have a person. She's a Marxist.
The thing about Trump, and listen, a lot of people can criticize his rhetoric, and I've criticized his rhetoric before. And Trump doesn't say everything that I like and stuff like that. But the thing about Trump that you have to respect is the authenticity. He also brings entertainment value. He understands for a lot of people, politics is very boring. And people don't want to talk about policy. And most people do not want to talk about politics and policy day in and day out for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever like that. So Trump is able to capture the attention of like that. I'm not making excuses, but I am explaining, and he is effective at winning news cycles, effective at breaking through the noise, and effective at communicating. Even some of his critics have said what an incredible communicator President Trump is. To that extent, I have breaking news here. breaking news here. This is very important. We're going to get right back into all of the rest of this stuff, but we have to bring this to you right now and discuss it. And that's what happens. It's live. Things happen. Breaking news. We have to discuss this and swerve a little bit. Right here, Mark Mitchell, and I heard this on the radio, also heard it from Clayton Buck. Trump is doing Rogan. He's going to go on the Joe Rogan podcast. I believe it's going to be this Friday. Right underneath this, Eric Daughtry again posted here that the news, Los Angeles Times has decided to not endorse Kamala Harris for president. And apparently the reason why that's potentially important is that Time has endorsed every Democratic presidential candidate since 2008. Had tipped Eric Daughtry on X. That's crazy. Paul, your comments on those two news stories about Los Angeles Times not endorsing Kamala Harris, and also, more importantly, frankly, is Trump doing the Joe Rogan podcast on Friday. Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen Reports puts that up on X. What do you think of that news story?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, look, people have been waiting for this. It was said that this was going to happen a few days ago. Trump mentioned it when he was on someone else's podcast that he was going to do it. And now we have the official word and we have the date. So I don't know if they're recording it or if it's going to be shown that day, if it's shown later, but at least it's going down then. So I think people are really happy about that. And as far as the Los Angeles Times thing, look, this is like the Teamsters and different entities not endorsing. I think they're starting to hedge their bets because people are starting to get an idea of where things may be going. And, why endorse somebody that you think might lose? So I don't know what the thought process is of whoever made the decision at the LA Times, but we're seeing it. We're seeing this happening.
To that extent, and we definitely need to talk about that. Let's get back to the other story because I think Mark Cuban comes into play on that in a couple of ways. First, I want to go to Charlie Kirk to extend this play, but then we're going to talk about Mark Cuban when we talk about possibly hedging the bets. I don't want to get too ahead of the game here, but let's go to Charlie Kirk here. And Charlie Kirk put this up this is from Wake Up America on, I believe, Charlie Kirk put this up from Senator Tuberville. Let's go to this down right now.
Kamala Harris, she's taking the day off.
Max.
She's going to spend all day just to prepare for an NBC interview, which will be taped. Of course, this would be like, you're a football coach. This would be like 2 weeks before the national championship if you decide not to practice. Does this make sense to you?
Well, I think they're just trying to keep her off camera, to be honest with you. She's been a disaster. Her poll numbers keep going down.
They're trying to keep her off camera. She's been a disaster. She's taken the day off for an NBC interview or who knows what. I mean, this is unbelievable. You have it right here. This is what I said months ago, Paul. It's going to come to a point where she's going to have to campaign, and she can't campaign. She's got no votes. I mean, she again to use the line again from the late great Denny Green, from NFL coach. She is the candidate that we thought she was 6 months ago, 10 months ago, 2 years ago. Nobody in the I don't say nobody. I mean, how many people on the Democratic side thought that she was the strongest candidate for the Democrats? Remember, we saw those pictures of Gavin Newsom going to the White House and rumors of Governor Gretchen Whitmer and stuff like that. We're not seeing it. You have a bench there in the Democratic Party, Governor Shapiro, Governor Whitmer, Governor Newsom, of course, Governor Hochul, Senator Warren. I mean, there's a lot of different, AOC even. You have a lot of different people on the Democratic side. The top of that list was not Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris was the first one out, or one of the first ones out of the Democratic primary when she ran against Joe Biden in 2020. She got on the ticket. Now, Paul, I don't want to steal your lines because, in fact, I'll tee you right up right now before we go to the Mark Cuban situation and start getting into some of these polls and early voting returns. But, I mean, you have a situation here where some say, reportedly, speculation, not allege anything, that President Obama had something to do, some influence potentially of getting, of having Kamala Harris become vice president with that first Biden run. But then there was a lot of kerfuffle and there was a lot of potential infighting when the hot swap happened, that some people, in fact, I think Nancy Pelosi, former Speaker Pelosi, talked about how she won an open primary. Well, that didn't happen. Kamala Harris was able to position herself and gather the delegates. And I don't think President Obama was super happy with how this unfolded. Well, be careful what you wish for. Here we go. And you have a, how did you think, how was this ever going to work out? Because we've never had this hot swap situation before in modern history, at least, number one. Number two, you have someone, you have people that already voted, which is the same point, but I want to reemphasize it, in a primary for another candidate. You have a sitting president who you say is not good enough to campaign, but he's good enough to still be president. You say that you're not going to change any policies. You wouldn't change a thing, but then you would, but you're different. I'm not Joe Biden. It makes no sense. You have someone that can't campaign. And literally today, Paul, they're not campaigning. Your take on that?
Look, I think this is a disaster. I mean, the person who said about Obama picking her is Charlie Sperling, who I believe writes for the Daily Mail. He wrote a book about this, and I know he has a number of Democrat sources. This is what he was told. One of the things that came out, I don't know if it's in that book, but that I have heard was a report that Kamala Harris put out some opposition research against Susan Rice's son, who apparently is more conservative, and that kind of helped her get the inside track to the VP slot. You mentioned Obama. Look, there were different things said about Obama and who he was favoring when Joe Biden was about to step out of the race. I heard Senator Mark Kelly. I think I even heard Pete Buttigieg's name mentioned out there. But yes, there was discussion that he was not really high on the prospects of Kamala Harris being the nominee. Look, what you're seeing today, you saw with Trump, and this is Trump at his best when he gets to front run and just start doing the name, the nicknames, and just kind of doing like the New York City, bust your chops, kind of like having fun. He's just saying, who the heck does this with 14 days out? And the contrast that we're witnessing right now is between somebody who is known as a workaholic who doesn't sleep much versus a person that a lot of people feel never really had the strongest work ethic and had perhaps some things handed to them. And now we're seeing this play out on the big stage. And I think that Trump is just running laps around Kamala Harris out on the campaign trail track, so to speak. And this is what you end up with. And we'll talk about some of how that might be playing out in the voting in a little bit.
Well, let's go to this here, because Mark Cuban's been out there, billionaire Mark Cuban of Shark Tank, celebrity from Shark Tank. And now, I'll go to this clip right here. It'll speak for itself.
I said, why are you letting Mark Cuban be out here being the face of this? Why aren't you saying it yourself when it is something that matters to so many?
Now, this is the tax plan. I believe this is the unrealized capital gains. So for a long time, people were like, well, what's Harris's policies? And then at first, she started coming out with some policies like $25,000. And this is my recollection, not alleged anything. Go to her website and double check it. But I think it was like $25,000 for first-time home buyers. So I think they came out with a $50,000 tax credit for startups or something like that. There also was this unrealized capital gains tax. And there was some other discussions, and people were like, whoa, especially like Silicon Valley venture capitalists, other people. I mean, like people were like, pretty much Wall Street as well was kind of freaking out about that. And instead of what they're saying here, I believe, is instead of explaining it at this point, they're sending Mark Cuban out there to explain it. He was on All In podcast. He was on CNBC with Joe Kernan. That did not go well. So I just want to provide that context. Let's get back into this clip.
People
because they don't want to alienate other voters. That's the big. That's the big.
Of
issue.
course, the big thing out there. And when I said this matters to so many people, someone told me yesterday they would tell you you're crazy if you said that to the campaign that this matters. The defense is that this isn't something they think is really going to be a moving issue in the last 2 weeks of the campaign. So they don't want to touch it. They don't want to alienate. But that
They don't want to alienate the base, but they also don't want to alienate their big donors, and that's the issue they run into.
Exactly.
No, wait a minute. They don't think it's a moving issue. Let me tell you something, players, and we'll talk about this in another video. It's already been a massive moving issue. Let's hit this. Okay, I mean, and this is what I mean by that. There's a chart that's going to show, and I'll do it I don't want to, jump that video, but I'm going to do it in another video, and Paul and I have already talked about off air, that shows the shift in sentiment in Silicon Valley. Going through what I went through there with the Obama years and being, my opinion, potentially quasi-canceled or canceled or what. I mean, we'll get into all that. to now. And it is a dramatic shift, players. And this is one of the reasons. Even Jason Calacanis said that was a disqualifying issue, if I remember correctly. Now, he's had some different statements. I'll let him speak for himself on one of the besties on the All In podcast. But what I'm saying is, people in business or even like real estate holdings and stuff like that, like, dude, you cannot operate, in my opinion, in venture capital because you have all these private investments, right? Okay, so there's a way, very, very much super like 100,000 foot level venture capital stuff. You get this money. I'm not giving financial advice, legal advice, any other cut advice, whatever like that. Okay, but just, as a talk show host, you get the money, you take it from investors or your own, whatever. You invest in these private companies. There's no liquidity. And a lot of times these valuations are kind of guesstimates. No different than, houses can appraise and real estate can appraise for different, the appraisal is one value, the macro may be one value, market value might be another value, tax, all okay. And you have no liquidity, and yet you're going to be taxed on it. Some of these unicorns, they go from basically next to nothing, and then a couple of years later, they may be worth, after investment and growth and stuff like that, they're worth over $1 billion, but there's no liquidity at this point. And then you're supposed to be taxed on that. Where's that money come from? So if you're a founder sitting there with like 10 million shares or whatever that it is, and now your holdings are worth $1 billion on paper, but you can't even sell this stock to do that. How do you get that money? Oh, Johnny, and it's a absolute no-go. And not only is it a no-go, but this is someone that was a senator and attorney general from California who has lots of connections in Silicon Valley. You should know better than that. And it's like, dude, it's impossible to operate in that situation. So that's why you have Mark Andreessen, Ben Horowitz, again, by their own words, traditionally donated to Democrats. Silicon Valley was super liberal, okay? And Nawal and Friedberg, maybe, Chamath, on and on. I mean, Bill Gurley, you just have this whole list of people, because not only is it is disqualifying in a lot of ways, because number one, you cannot operate business in that way with venture capital, startups, tech industry, real estate, some hedge funds. You can't do that. I mean, again, you may have a position that's gone up, but you want to hold on to that position and you don't want to sell out. You may have, it's like even on public companies, if you've got a thesis of where this investment is going to go in 5 years, right? I mean, if you invested in Tesla stock or NVIDIA stock, maybe 5 years ago, maybe you want to hold it for another 5 years or something like that. You didn't want to have to sell the first year, but also beyond that, Paul, it's really, and I'll circle back and make this all make sense here. It's really also an insight into, oh man, I gotta be careful what I say here. The lack of understanding and sophistication on these issues. Okay. Right. And for a party that flexes that it's the college educated, it's the smart party, and Republicans are rubes and all this type of stuff. You're seeing people like Bill Ackman and others, in my opinion, and there's a variety of issues, okay, but you're seeing an almost a shamedness, an embarrassment from some people in the elite, and in fact, Andrea, it's not just my saying. I'll try to find it. Andrea, I'm not trying to be a punk and trying to punk out, Kamala Harris. I have no problem with I've said it before many times. If we were personally hanging out, if we were at a party, I would much rather talk to Kamala Harris than talk to Hillary Clinton. In one way, in terms of like, if I'm hanging out and having fun, if I'm talking policy, or I want to have an interesting discussion, or I want to talk to someone smart, or I want to talk to someone that's going to push me or know something, I would much rather talk to Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton is a heavyweight. And I don't think Kamala Harris is a heavyweight. And Andrea Mitchell actually said it, that business leaders don't think that, this is my paraphrase. I'm not going to get the quote exactly right.
Yeah, I remember it.
Go ahead,
she
Paul.
She said that business leaders think she's a lightweight.
Thinks she's a lightweight. And that's
basically what she said.
and I'm going to bring you right in here. But let me just say this one last thing. That's why when Mark Cuban goes out and tries to do the, this little I'm the shark, and hey, you know what I'm saying, right? It reminds me of exactly what Brett. It was so classic with Brett Baer. You know what I mean, Brett Baer. No, I don't. But when Mark Cuban has to defend this, he looks silly because you can't defend it. You can't defend it. So it's not that, they don't think it's an issue. You can't win, dude. That's like me going up and trying to play football against NFL linemen. It's not going to work. There's no possible equation at my age and physical capability that it's never going to work. You can give me 1 down, 2 downs, 100 downs, assuming that I'm not already in the hospital by then. It's not going to work. You can't defend this, Paul. Go ahead. Your comments.
Yeah, look, I mean, I understand the thought process that for like the average person, they might taxing unrealized capital gains might not mean much, and I'm sure that's what she's thinking. But as you said, for people like Mark Cuban, who's your surrogate, it means a whole bunch. For people in Silicon Valley, it means a ton. For people that are key to your donor base, it means a huge amount. And as you said, I think the biggest problem with it is you don't seem to have the economic literacy to understand how important it is.
Perfectly said.
That's what you were just trying to explain. Of course, you and I both know this from having worked in Silicon Valley, but this is important to people on Wall Street. This is important to people in developing tech haven in Boston. This matters for your base. And so, like I said, is you're just saying, okay, we'll let Mark Cuban just talk about it. Mark Cuban is out there saying that it's a bad idea. I mean, it's like, this is just illustrative of how disastrous and amateurish I think that this campaign is.
It absolutely is. And here's the thing. We're not just talking about rich people getting richer and it's just about money and stuff like that.
No.
It's beyond that, because as you saw with the Tesla, with the We Robot event, stuff like that, like, let me tell you something. We are in global competition now. Okay. There's other centers out there. There's China that's doing stuff. Israel is doing a lot of stuff. Europe is, France is trying to be competitive. There's obviously, there's things going on in Dubai. There's things going on in Singapore. There's different centers that are popping up globally. Okay. Along with Japan, South Korea, stuff like that. Right. And if we can't be competitive and are going to do silly policy, why do you think so many people are moving out of California? They're gone, dude. Like, they're not coming, like so much business is not coming back now. And here's what's so funny. So to that extent, kind of going back to the other point, now you've got Mark Cuban, who himself went out there, was so strong against Trump, and then and sounded like he maybe had a little TDS, whatever like that. I'm not alleging anything. And that's we're just having fun here on the radio. It's entertainment value. It's parody. You have Mark Cuban, and I like Mark Cuban, by the way, you know what I mean? But I think he's really wrong on this issue. I think he's gotten over on his skis, and maybe he thinks he's gotten out there on his skis, because now you've got Mark Cuban saying that he's potentially open to work with the Trump administration, that he's quote on America first. So wait a minute. Wait a minute. What about the threats to democracy? What about the J6? What about I'm here for Kamala? I mean, Paul, that doesn't sound like, he's looking a little like Rachel Maddow there. I don't know. Like, we got the glasses going on. Go ahead.
It's exactly what you said earlier, which is, this is an example, like the LA Times, of what looks like people hedging their bets. People already starting to think, I don't know if this is going to work for Kamala Harris. That's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah, it's not looking good. Now, I also want to go to this. Bill Ackman, Pershing Square CEO and founder, okay, Harvard alum, and billionaire. He's out there. He's got some interesting things to say right here. And here's the thing. This goes to I just posted this. This was a town hall, right? And this is a repost here. And basically talking about that Kamala Harris wasn't taking questions at this event here, this town hall, I believe, with Maria Shriver. Let's listen to this. Right. Hold on. Let me make sure I've got it. lined up right. Let's listen to this right here.
You're not, unfortunately. We have some determined questions, and hopefully I'll be able to ask some of the questions that might be in your head. I hope.
Voter asked if they were going to be able at the town hall, asked if they were going to be able to ask questions. No, you can't ask questions. Let's hear that again.
You're not, unfortunately. We have some determined questions, and hopefully I'll be able to ask some of the questions that might be in your head. I hope so.
I hope so. Yeah. Because we wouldn't want actual voters live like Trump has done, like Elon Musk has done repeatedly, like other people. I mean, we wouldn't want to actually have the voters have a chance to do anything live. I mean, dude, how much more, stage can this campaign be, Paul? This is silliness. This is just silliness, dude. Trump is taking questions from voters driving up in McDonald's drive-through lines. I mean, like, he's going to barbershops. I mean, it's just like, it's not a good look for this Harris campaign right now. This does not seem, we're going to get right into the polls here in a second and early voting. This does not seem like a campaign that's on a winning track, Paul. Your comments.
It doesn't look like a thing that's winning. You're seeing momentum, energy, positivity coming from the Trump campaign, and we're seeing backbiting, infighting, finger pointing. There was something, I believe, by someone in the Atlantic Council, which is a very, kind of an elite circle type of organization, that wrote something, an opinion piece for The Hill yesterday, that said that Biden may have been the stronger candidate. We're already starting to get stuff like that.
I've already said that.
I mean, It's unbelievable. So yeah, this does not look good just from an objective standpoint of what the kind of the signs or the writing on the wall isn't looking that great right now. It's not over yet, but we're going to talk here in a second about what some of the numbers look like.
We absolutely are. And here I want to give credit to Bill Ackman, Pershing Square CEO, hedge fund magnate, Harvard alum. And basically his comment about this, his reaction as to what his quote, two principal reasons why voters object to the scripted Kamala Harris. One, they want to know what she really thinks. With questions given in advance, her team prepares answers that she simply parrots. There is no opportunity to learn who Harris really is and what she truly believes. Second, the president typically doesn't receive hard questions in advance and must be ready to respond at a moment's notice to new situations that can determine the fate of the country. What did I say before, right? I mean, and other people are picking this up, and even President Trump, picked it up. And I'm not saying, but there's obviously, we're all talking in the town square here in X and others, and people, I get influenced by people, and people maybe get influenced by us. Is that this is a competency issue? This is there's certain positions, and I'm going to be careful how I say this. There's certain positions, certain occupations where there's nowhere to hide. I mean, you can fly a rocket or you can't. You can go be part of a special forces team and do, some of those missions, or you can't. You can be a pilot or you can't. You know what I mean? You can be a surgeon. There's some mission critical positions in organizations and just in just professions. Being president of the United States is definitely one of those. You can be a congressperson and maybe you're a little bit, on the left, a little bit out there on the right, or maybe you said something, whatever. You can't do that as president of the United States, Paul. And I think that's what Bill Ackman and others are saying. And there's some trepidation. There's some concern here in the business community, in my opinion, and a lot of other places, quite frankly. And look at how people are feeling in North Carolina. And to that extent, we're seeing some polls now. We're seeing some different things out there where people, there's some new data, there's some new things coming in, and here we go. Actually, we'll go to this here. We'll go to Mark Halperin, because Mark Halperin on his two-way is saying it. And Mark Halperin, I would consider him on the left, Paul, but I would also say that he's fair. He's got some sources out there. I know he follows you and others. And I think he's out there, and he's someone that has appeared on MSNBC and some other places like that repeatedly, obviously. And this is for someone like Mark Halperin is saying something like this is very interesting. Let's go to Mark Halperin right now.
Good morning, everybody. Let's lead with the lead, as they say in journalism. If the early vote numbers stay the way they are, and that's a big if, we'll almost certainly know before Election Day who's going to win the election.
Oh,
We're going to talk a lot about that. The reasons why Democrats.
wait. We were just being prepared over, in my opinion, over the last several days. We had the Secretary of State from Georgia. It may take days. I'm not alleging anything. It's my recollection, my personal paraphrase. But we've heard reports, Paul, that it may take days. We may not know for a while. Who knows? And we know, in 2020 there was. We had some votes coming in overnight. We had some stuff shutting down. We had alleged water leaks, and now Mark Halperin saying that we might know. Why would we know?
Democrats might be underperforming. The prospect that they'll recover. Democrats might be underperforming.
Wait, what?
A lot about that. The reasons why Democrats might be underperforming. The prospect that they'll recover.
Democrats might be underperforming.
But again, make no mistake, if these numbers hold up in the states where we can understand even partially what the data is like, we'll know that Donald Trump's going to be president on Election Day.
Whoa!
So we're going to talk about that.
Whoa! Let's replay that. Hold on, that's shocking.
What the data is like, we'll know that Donald Trump's going to be president on Election Day.
Whoa!
So we're
Wait a minute. And what does this do? Look at his face. I love Halperin. Look at the face. Oh my goodness. And Mark Halperin went on Tucker Carlson, Paul. I'll bring you in here before we play the rest of this, and said that Trump winning could be one of the biggest mental health crises out there. Is this a letting down gently of the Democratic side based upon the early voting out there, based upon the polls? What do they know that we don't know, Paul?
Yeah, look, let me just say this for people that just so people understand the mechanics of this. Mark Halperin is a good guy. I used to be the main guy at ABC. Now he's at Newsmax. He's a very smart guy. His family, I believe his father worked in a number of different administrations, super connected guy, very smart guy. Look, he, for himself, doesn't want to say things like what he's saying right there because he wants people to keep watching his show every day. So if he goes on the show today and says, we might know about like what's going to happen pretty soon here, that's not going to help his views on his things. But he understands you have to tell people what is actually going on. What is going on right now is that the early voting looks really good for Trump and very not good for Kamala Harris and the Democrats. Now, I'm not going to say that's in every single situation, but for example, I think they're doing relatively well in like Michigan. But in terms of both absentee balloting and in-person early voting in states like Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, it is not looking promising from a perspective for the Kamala Harris campaign. What you're basically seeing from a large-scale overview is that the Republican enthusiasm is probably a little bit up, maybe tracking similar to 2020, but a slight increase. But what you're really seeing is a decrease for the Democrats. That's what you're seeing is a lack of enthusiasm among some of their core constituencies. I think particularly some of maybe the like in Georgia, the black vote does not look like it's at the level that it was previously and what they're hoping that it's going to be. And so now, of course, there's plenty of time left for more votes to come in, but the trends don't look good. And so that's why Mark Halperin is saying what he's saying. That's why the poly market and these other market odds are going the way that they're going. We're not talking about polls anymore. We're talking about votes. And so once you get to a certain threshold of these votes, you're not going to realistically overcome them on Election Day. Now, we're not there yet. Just want to be clear about that. And people still need to go out and vote, or else all this can be moot in the end. But Mark Halperin is seeing this. Rich Barris is seeing this. Data quants are seeing this. I'm seeing it. John's seeing it. Everybody's seeing it. That's what's happening so far. The nightmare scenario for the Democrats is starting to come into play. And if it keeps going, then pretty soon, effectively, we are going to know what it's going to be by election day.
So a couple of things. Number one, and we're not anyone's head. We're not alleging anything or anything like that. I mean, we have, who knows why Mark Halpern's saying or doing what he's doing. I will say that generally having as Paul says, having a tight contest, a close contest is maybe good for ratings, maybe good for business and for media generally. If you've got a blowout on an NFL game, people stop watching. Okay, or baseball game or anything like that. Let's finish this. We're gonna go Paul's covered a lot of ground. We're gonna get right into the polls, right into the early voting. But let's just finish this clip up here with Mark Halpern and see what he has to say here to finish it out.
Talk about that, but I didn't want to bury that because it's extraordinarily important, and we got to track that day to day. That's more important than the polls right now. It's more important than almost anything because it's giving us insight into a variety of factors that are accounting for a Republican overperformance by various metrics in the early voting in the battleground state.
A Republican overperformance in the battleground states. Now, let's go to the polls for a second because we still have early voting. We still obviously a lot of people are going to show up on election day. Both things are important. What's going on with early voting? What's going on with the polls? If I had to say which one's more important, then sure, early voting is more important, but I think both are important. So let's set the table first and look at because this is another headline. Okay. We're going to go state by state here. We're going to go state by state here right now on the battleground states. Let's talk about Arizona. This is Arizona. Now, again, this day in history, you had Biden up at 3.2% in 2020, Clinton up 1.5% in 2016. Well, guess what, players? The RCP average, you've got Trump up 1.8%. That's in Arizona. We heard about the McCain stuff. We heard it was close. We heard all this type of stuff. That's in Arizona. Okay, well, John, that's Arizona. All right, cool. Let's go to Nevada. A lot of people said, including me, that Nevada's probably maybe the most defensible potentially of the battleground states for Kamala Harris. And it always kind of turned into kind of fool's gold for the Republicans because you had the Harry Reid, a former majority leader Harry Reid machine out there. You had some of the service workers unions. You had different things that would come in that would different factors that would end up having the state go to the Democrats in the end on the presidential level. Well, let's look at Nevada. Nevada, Trump up 0.9%. Again, and as I said, you had Nevada that was 5.2% for Biden in 2020, 4.7% for Clinton in 2016. All right, what about Wisconsin, right? Wisconsin, where Governor Walz and all that type of stuff, right? That's his state, right? He's the governor of Wisconsin right now, right?
He's the governor of Minnesota.
Minnesota. Okay. That's what I thought. Okay. I knew it was one of, okay. So very close to, so my apologies. So very close to, okay. Wisconsin, right next door. Let's look at Wisconsin. Trump up 0.4. And I mean, you've got like the very blue, college cities of Madison, Wisconsin there. You've got some, different spots there. Obviously, JD Vance was in Green Bay. I mean, and again, Clinton was up 6.5%. And this is the blue wall, dude. But Biden up 4.6% there. That's Wisconsin. Arizona Trump, Nevada Trump, Wisconsin Trump. What about Michigan? Governor Whitmer was there. Is there right now. Oh, snap. Michigan, Trump 1.2%. And you've got a sea of red here. Only the Wall Street Journal shows her up. This is Biden 7.8 up, Clinton 11 point up. Michigan has been a huge change. That is a shocking poll right there, Paul, to have Michigan having Trump up. That is shocking. Paul was in Pennsylvania. Let's look at Pennsylvania. Crucial battleground state. Pennsylvania, Trump up 0.8. Trafalgar just dropped a poll. Atlas Intel just dropped a poll. Rasmussen's over there. You've got Trump up 0.8. And Biden was up in 2020, up 4.9. Clinton in 2016 was up 6.2. So the blue wall states right there, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, all looking for Trump right now on the polls. North Carolina hit by Hurricane Helene. Trump up 0.5. Okay, now Atlas Intel just drops up in Harris point up 2. I mean, it's close. North Carolina's close. But you had a situation where Biden was up 1.8 before. Clinton was up 2.9 before. What about Georgia? Everyone's been talking about Georgia. Georgia, Nothing but red there. Trump up 2.5%. Before you had Biden up 0.8%. And then in 16, you had Trump up 4. I don't think, I think at this point, it's looking to me that Arizona and Georgia look to be off the table for the Democrats. I mean, but one way or the other, doesn't matter. Trump doesn't, let's go back to the electoral map. Trump does not need all of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 battleground states, but he's up in every single one of them. So if you go to no toss-ups right here, the electoral map for RCP is 219 Trump Vance, 215 Harris Walsh with 104 toss-ups. And that's what it looks like. If you go to no toss-ups right now, right, what does it look like? No toss-ups, 312 Trump Vance, 226 Harris and Walsh, and you're seeing all of those blue walls, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania going for Trump Vance. You're seeing North Carolina go for Trump Vance, Georgia going for Trump Vance, Arizona going for Trump Vance, Nevada going for Trump Vance. And Paul, you were talking to me off air. They may start campaigning in New Mexico. They may start campaigning in Virginia. They may start campaigning in New Hampshire. This could be a blowout election, electoral college-wise, just based upon the polls. And we're going to go to the early voting next. Your comments.
Yeah, I think it could be. And of course, the pollster Rich Barris, who was a terrific pollster, one of the things he said, and I'm not saying this, he is, was that some of the pollsters that usually wait to do final polls until, the very end of October, the very beginning of November, they're putting out final polls now. His reasoning for that is some of these pollsters understand Kamala Harris is tracking downward. And what he said is that, look, some of these guys, they realize in his thinking, she's going to keep going down in the polls, in the numbers, and they don't want to track that. In other words, let's put the number out now before it goes further down. That's what he says. And he understands the business and the people involved in it very well. So we're going to find out if that is true. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution just put out a Trump +4 poll, which, if you know their polling history, that's staggering for the state of Georgia.
It is.
But based upon the early voting, it's definitely possible. And that's what we're seeing right now. This trend more and more towards Trump. And of course, nothing succeeds like success. Trump is building momentum off of this. And the more it builds, the bigger the victory could be. And he could carry both chambers of Congress with him, including the Republicans keeping the House. Mike Johnson, the speaker, was even talking about building the majority even larger.
Well, you're seeing different things, and exactly what you said. You saw a high watermark for Harris in the RCP average back in September 18th of like 49.4%, somewhere around there. Or another one again, September 22nd. So 49.4% seems to be the high watermark on the RCP average. And then Trump had a low watermark of maybe 46.2% back in August 29th, somewhere around there. You have 46.2% in that area, that week-ish type of range. But all of a sudden, since October 5th, you're seeing just this Trump climb and surge. And now recently a big surge here. Ever since like at October 15th, Trump was at 47.5. Now he's sitting at 48.5%. Okay, so that is a full percentage point move on the RCP average. And Harris is at, so you've got, Harris at 49.3, Trump at 48.5, RCP average, Harris 0.8 in the national polls. However, the electoral college is different. And remember, generally, if the Democrats aren't up by 2% or more on the national polls, they're probably going to lose, or they might be vulnerable to losing. But at this day in history, Biden was up 7.9. Clinton was up 6.1. So just dramatically different things. And as Paul says, the momentum is clear. It's on Trump's side. What can shift the momentum? The other thing is the fundamentals. Job approval. President Biden job approval, minus 15.1%. Right track, wrong track. That's a negative 37%. That's huge. Okay, battlegrounds. Trump up 1.2%. And I'll look at all these battlegrounds. I mean, it's the evidence is very, very strong. But let's talk about the serious hard evidence, Paul, that we've been talking about of some early voting. And we have some of that information in here. And you probably have some more you can go to. This is from Michael Pruser on X. And I think he's part of I don't know if he's part of Decision Desk HQ. I'm not sure. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't think people don't quite know if that's the case or not, but he definitely is a very knowledgeable guy.
A knowledgeable guy. So he's out there with some data. And now it looks in North Carolina that you have, a slight advantage for the Democrats, but it's very close. And that's a lot of the early voting stuff traditionally has been going for the Democrats, and Republicans show up on election day typically. So that's a very close thing right there. Okay. What about Nevada? Now, Nevada, that had shifted a lot. The Republicans were down in early voting. Here, they are up in early voting. And I mean, that is really powerful in Nevada. Okay. And so we're seeing some different things here. In Georgia, we're seeing some different things here. So a lot of things. Florida, total just Republicans are swamping the vote out there. This used to be I'm here in Florida, used to be a purple state. Now it is definitely a red state. I mean, there's a lot of things going on here. And the Republicans are looking good. In Pennsylvania, last thing I'll share here, Paul, you're on the ground there, in terms of net registration voter over the last 7 days, Republicans are doing it. 27,600, plus 73 voters registered. Democrats only registered 12,772. That's a little bit of a small snapshot, but it just shows you what the momentum is. What do you see there with the early voting results, Paul?
It's what I see and what you see in North Carolina. Sure, the Democrats are ahead barely. In Nevada, the Republicans are ahead. And what you're seeing in Pennsylvania is a uptick and where the Republicans are at, and a significant downtick for the Democrats from 2020. So yes, as you mentioned, Democrats typically outvote Republicans in early voting, but it's the margin that matters. Right now, what you're seeing in these various states is that it does not look like they're getting the margins that they're going to need to get, the Democrats, in order to be able to withstand the expected loss on election day turnout by Republicans. That's what's happening in these different states early on. Now, of course, there's still more time, but it's not looking great for them in these different things. North Carolina votes almost even, which is, that apparently is not, very typical there. Georgia, the constituencies that people think are going to go more for Republicans, they're out in a much stronger fashion. Nevada, as I said, Republicans are beating Democrats straight up, which just doesn't happen. So what you're seeing is a lack of enthusiasm, is what it appears to be, among Democrat voters. And on the opposite side, you're seeing strong enthusiasm from Republican voters, particularly, it looks like, rural voters. We saw that in Virginia a while ago, and it's continuing. And now we're seeing it in other states as well. So that's the early snapshot. And if it does keep going like this, it's going to be functionally incredibly difficult to overcome for Kamala Harris on election day.
I'm going to keep this super general because there's some things I kind of want to, I don't want to talk about something, but let's just say there's some things on X. There's some people on the Democrat side. St. Unger had some. This is a separate point, but I just remembered it. St. Unger had some important comments on the Young Turks. There's people on the Democrat side that are saying what I've been saying. Obviously, they're saying a lot of different things, and I'm not saying that. I don't want to, but I don't want to get into all that. But basically saying that, look, Kamala Harris wasn't a good candidate. And a lot of the people that think she's so amazing now weren't super thrilled with her not that long ago. That's what I've been saying. I mean, if you can't, turn an airplane into a time machine or I don't know what, you know what I mean? Like it is what it is, dude. Now, one of the things that Paul was saying, we're going to bring this up right now. We're talking about, you're just seeing this in prediction markets, and the prediction markets, I think, are speaking very loudly at this point, and you're seeing a sharp turn in that. So right here, like October 6th, it was about tied. since then, and before we didn't hear about, oh, it was, all the billionaires and it's being manipulated. And now all of a sudden, boom. I mean, it's just so, you've got 60.1% Trump, 38.4% Harris. I mean, just, that's showing how people think this election is going to go, Paul. It's just starting to really break out for Trump at this point.
Yeah, look, the highest that Trump got, I believe, on Polymarket, which probably around after the debate with Biden, I believe was 74%. Right now, I'm looking at Polymarket, he's at 66%. And Kamala Harris is at 34%. That's a 32-point spread. I mean, that is gigantic. Remember, we're 2.5 weeks from Election Day. But what they're pricing in is voting and ballot returns in the early voting season. As we both know, it's an election season now, not a day. And so everything matters in that. And all those trends are clearly overall favoring President Trump. No doubt about it.
It's looking good. There's a lot of things happening there. You've got, last thing I'll end it here with, and you have Howard Lutnick. I'm following him. Okay, 1 second. And he's out there talking about, the transition team he was on with Jesse Kelly, and how things are looking pretty darn good. And let's go to that right now and what they're planning. And here we go. I'll let him speak.
If we're so lucky, if Donald Trump wins and you're in charge of transition, hiring, we had a trouble the last time bringing people in. What is going to be different about a second Trump term with personnel?
So I learned, because the story, my firm was located on the top of the World Trade Center, and we lost everyone. We rebuilt the company. In 2005, I hired 4,000 people in 1 year.
That's a lot.
And how do you do that? Well, you know what you do? You lean on people who you respect and admire, and you say, help me. So I have gone to the 150 greatest Republicans in the United States of America. I lean on Chuck Schwab. I lean on Ross Perot. Right? I lean across the board, the greatest lawyers, the greatest technologists, and say, help me. Let's build the greatest.
So he's out there. So they're talking to people. They're doing some stuff. So yeah, a lot of things are going on. And then again, you've got Mark Mitchell saying what you were saying, Paul, the Polymarket thing. Trump about 66, Harris at 34, 65.8 for President Trump. There's a lot going on right now. A lot's happening. So that's the latest right there. We've got, Kamala Harris apparently is not campaigning today. I guess she's got an interview tomorrow or soon. You've got Trump up in all the polls, Trump up in the battleground state polls. You've got, Trump, the Republicans are doing well, maybe overperforming in the early voting. And you've got people no less than Mark Halperin that are saying, hey, Democrats, this isn't looking so great for them. And we may even know before on election day that Trump is going to be, if Trump is going to be president. Now, still 2 weeks ago, a lot of election to happen, a lot of things happening, but is it getting late, early? Paul, your final comments here on where we stand on October 22nd.
Yeah, look, I would just tell people, if you're on the Trump side, just stay focused, keep going and run through the tape. Because it's not over yet, even no matter how good it looks. And if you want to get the result, just keep pushing. And that's what I would say. Is for the Kamala Harris people, I would say, you gotta step it up. I mean, again, this is not the time to be taking days off or that type of thing. There's a lot that has to be done if you're going to turn this around.
And just real quick, as we get out of here, special thanks to Kimbo Depp for liking the post, and obviously, and for the people that are out there engaging with the posts, and we definitely appreciate that. I'm going to pin this to my page. Come talk to Paul and I on X. Paul has a big channel on X. You can see Paul right there, and then Paul, aka Vince Manfield, at Aurelius Stoic 1, and he's got 22,400 plus followers. So he's out there doing his thing, and you can come see me at John D. Villarreal and on X. And so we definitely appreciate it. So we've been live on Rumble, YouTube, X, Facebook, and we'll repost this on LinkedIn. For Paul at Villarreal, I am John D. Villarreal. Thanks so much. And we may do something later today. Still a lot to talk about, but we look forward to your comments, and we thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.